So, over 76% of mums and over 91% of dads in the UK are in work right now. But how many businesses actually know what the law expects of them in relation to this group of people? So, from maternity pay to neonatal care leave, family rights are changing and they're changing fast. So, if you miss a step, and you could easily miss a step in relation to these areas, you could be exposed to costly legal risks. So if your business employs parents, and let's be honest, most do, you need to know what's legally required, what's changing, and how you need to get it right and what you can do to get it right. So stay with me in this video, and I'm going to walk you through what you must do, what's new, and how to stay compliant while building a workforce and a workplace that, of course, works for parents and your business as well. So just before I get into this, I'm going to apologize. I'm working from home. I'm shooting this video under some crazy light, and I'm getting huge glare on my glasses. So I apologize for that in advance. But if you didn't know me, my name is Mike. The company is Cavell, and we help and support businesses just like you to actually get more higher performing, more productive people, more productive workforce that helps your business to grow and scale and reduce the amount of shit that hits the fan in what we call the people paradigm. You need people that scale and grow, but with people come people problems. So with that, I want to really focus today in today's video about why this matters about parents in the workplace. Why is this a big thing? Well, parents aren't a niche group. They're basically the fundamental part and underpinning part of your workforce. Over 76% of mums, over 90% of dads are in work. So look, let's be honest with each other. Like I said at the outset, it's likely you are employing parents. So getting this right protects your business legally. But it also boosts retention, by the way. It helps increase engagement and it builds great rapport and trust with your staff. So it's really fundamentally important. So getting it wrong, that's where tribunal claims come from. That's where we get costly absences. It's where we get a damaged culture. It's where we get all sorts of riddled problems that will go through your business and cause no end of mess hitting fans, which you really, really want to avoid at all costs. Believe me, you really do. And do you know what's really funny? Again, as always, I'm going to go off on a slight tangent. I always use things like maternity policies, shared parental leave. I always say to people, when we're building policies and handbooks, etc., this is the section that people don't know. They don't understand. Even those 76% of mums and 91% dads in the workplace, not all of them will absolutely know this. And some of them, quite frankly, the last time they've interacted with them might not have been so recent. They might not know. They might not know. They might not know changes that have occurred within the workplace policies and legislation that have occurred over recent years. So this is one that I always bring up, that until you are pregnant or you are married or in a relationship with someone who is pregnant, or you are looking to adopt, until you're in those elements of things, this isn't a policy you really come into reading. And I think it's really the same for businesses. Until you employ somebody who is pregnant, is married, or with somebody who has a partner, significant other that is pregnant, looking to adopt, looking to take shared parental care, you don't read these policies and you don't know. And I always use this as an example because it really magnifies that principle that, in actual fact, there's a lot of things past this as well that businesses aren't aware of, that you don't focus on, and that quite quickly you can make simple, easy mistakes on. In fact, even big multinational companies make mistakes on the smallest of things that come back and have massive cost implications on them in their business. And that's why this is really so important. So with that in mind, what are the legal responsibilities that we're talking about here? So I want to kind of really focus through this in different areas. So we're going to break it down By the way, I'm going to try and do this time before the end of the video. There's a lot of hand waving going on here, but before the end of the video, this is a podcast. It's out on our YouTube channel. It's also out wherever you can download your podcasts, and equally, we also provide this with our articles. So if this is of interest to you and you would like to have more, maybe get our recent guide that we release once a month, and other various updates, and get them early, then you can use the link below in the description, and you click through that. If you are watching this as part of the article, don't just watch the video, because that's really easy to sit there and watch me talk, or listen to me in the background. You can also read the article below where you get more information. So I'm skimming the tops of this, but I'm going to go through this in a little bit of order. So I'm going to break this down quickly. So maternity leave and pay. Important things to understand around this. This is ordinary and additional maternity leave. So you get 52 weeks leave and you get 39 weeks statutory maternity pay. That's if applicable. Obviously, individuals need to have been employed with you for 26 weeks before the 15th week, before the due date, which is why I love maternity, because there's so many weird, quirky things to say. The 15 weeks, sorry, 26 weeks, I've got it wrong. The 26 weeks before the 15th week, before the due date. Crazy things. And quite often within small employers, we tend to find examples of individuals that fantastic news that they're pregnant and expecting. However, they haven't fallen within that category. They're still entitled to maternity pay, potentially more through the government than through your business, but they're still entitled to maternity leave. So those are things important to remember. And they should, as I've just touched on with some of those dates there, they should notify you of their maternity by the 15th week before their due date. Okay, so that's something quick with maternity leave and pay. Paternity leave is much different to that. Think of this what you like. It's 1 or 2 weeks paid leave within the 56 days of the birth of the child. You get 2 antenatal appointments, which will be unpaid throughout that process as well to help and support you. However, there is a flip side to this for you dads out there who may have or partners that are going through this and wanting to share their maternity with you through shared parental leave. So this, I will say, hand on heart, is something that less frequently comes up and is less frequently used. We have had a case more recently with a client where this has been applied, but you can have and share up to 50 weeks of leave and 37 weeks of pay. So in other words, instead of just taking you 1 to 2 weeks parental leave, paternity leave, sorry, you can increase that and use some of your partner's maternity leave. This means flexibility and obviously communication between your partner and their employer, and you and your employer to put that into place. And there are particular processes you need to go through with that. And also there's adoptive leave. So adoption leave is pretty much exactly the same as maternity, or is the same as maternity. And again, the same restrictions would apply with that. Something I'm quite keen to touch on, because this is fresh, this is one of the things that's coming that's relatively new, is neonatal care leave. So this is a new legal right for you parents of babies needing neonatal care. So I think, actually, personally, I think it's quite an important element that's come into the law. It's for those employees who are eligible. They'll be able to take up to 12 weeks of paid leave, and that's in addition to maternity and in addition to parental leave. And that would also be the same with shared parental leave as well. This applies when a baby is admitted to hospital, unfortunately, in the first 28 days after birth, and they stay for more than 7 days. It protects parents during one of the undoubtedly hardest moments of their lives. I don't think any of us will deny that at all. And it will reduce long-term sickness absences, because undoubtedly when parents are going through such a critical, challenging time, it is going to lead to absences and sickness absence. And this just is, I think, just something that's just a wise move to have in place. And then, of course, you get parental leave as well. So parental leave is 18 weeks of unpaid leave per child, and that's up to their 18th birthday. And they must have at least more than one or more, years of service within the business for that to be applicable. Pregnancy, loss, and bereavement. So Again, one of the hardest times for parents to go through. If the unborn child and the bereavement has happened before the 24th week of pregnancy, then there is obviously the compassionate and sick leave and other bits and pieces. And after the 24 weeks, you still have the full maternity paternity rights plus 2 weeks for parental bereavement leave as well, that would be put into place. So I've whizzed through those, and I know I have. And if there are any elements in there you want a lot more detail on, because obviously, in this video, I haven't got enough room for that. And I think for each of those individual components, especially neonatal care, it's a video in its own right. So I know I've only skimmed the very surface of that. We do have more information in the article. But again, if you do need further help or you've got further questions and you'd like to ask those, there's a link in the article below, and there's a link in descriptions below where you can click on those, come through, get some time, let's have a chat and a coffee, not a problem whatsoever. So just moving on, there are some other elements as well that kind of, I would say, interact, form the basis of, and kind of connected to everything relating to parents. For example, flexible working. So again, I've spoken about flexible working. You watch these videos quite a lot. It is something that for me has seen probably most changes, tinkering, and considerations for more tinkering coming forward. That keeps on happening. It's the area that seems to have a lot more change and shift within it, for me personally, anyway. And with that, it means that individuals get the day one right of employment to request flexible working. Remember, the key word here is a right to request. There are fair reasons as to why you can refuse a request, but there are key mechanisms and consultative mechanisms that you need to go through. And of course, with flexible working, it is most commonly something that comes up when you do have returning mums and parents from work who are looking to get more flexible working, and balancing the needs of work and childcare commitments. So you need to be aware of that. You need to be aware of the processes you need to go through, the time frames that apply. And again, the same with the other bits and pieces. I'm skimming this. If you've got further questions, please click the link. Just book some time in the diary, have a coffee and a chat. More than happy to help. The next part is risk assessments. I think something that quite often is overlooked, and missed. I do have on this, I'm going to pause for a minute. We do have some really good news coming on this for those of you that work with us. So we are, and looking to work with us as well, by the way, we are going to have a partnership that's going to come into force, is going to help with health and safety and help you with these risk assessments and guide you through these crucial processes. But it is important for parents and pregnant parents that pregnant parents for pregnant staff, that we want to make sure that we're doing the right things and that we're not exacerbating anything or putting the unborn child at risk, that we're not causing any risk to mum. So it's important that we identify those risks, that we make adjustments, and maybe adjusted hours where and how we can, and we look to see what we can do within the bounds of reasonability to do those different bits. So if there are no suitable alternatives, and obviously the working environment isn't suitable for mum or unborn baby, then of course you may have to look, where applicable, by the way, at full pay suspension, pending that person's maternity due to start, because obviously we can't put people at risk, and that's a fundamental principle, and that's why I think missing that point there is one of the elements I quite commonly see as the windows to risk for employers. Equally as well, by the way, breastfeeding. So providing a restful space, a private space, not a toilet, not a toilet. That mums can obviously go and do breastfeeding, and obviously it's clean. We want to make sure that it's private, so it's not something that's got windows on the doors, etc., or there's blinds and things that are available to give privacy. And we want to help as well with storage of milk. So again, I think these are quite commonly things that I talk about quite a lot that pop up that you don't know, you don't look into, you're not aware of until it actually happens. And that's the most common theme with maternity policies and parental policies, because that's just a great example of it. And I think it's from both sides, from parents and from employer sides. Until you come into having to use these, there's less you know about them. So it's kind of sometimes you cross these bridges when you come to them, but these will be important things to be aware of. Equally, I think it's quite interesting. So with a client we have at the moment in time, there are so many different variable kind of possibilities of someone returning to work after maternity or adoption leave or share parental leave. There just are. There's so many different things. They might want to return early than what they'd planned. They want to take some flexible working. They may have annual leave. They may have front loaded or rear loaded or both with with their maternity in the middle of that, and they've got leave to take. And how do you plan that? How do you plan the return and handover to the work the person was doing? All those different bits and pieces, and understanding that there's a foray of different things that could happen. So having some planning around that and having some prior communication and conversations of that, which gladfully our client is absolutely doing, which is fantastic. I think that works really, really well. Because again, you've got to remember, and hopefully over maternity, you haven't just out of sight, out of mind situation. So there's kit days and other bits I'll come on to in a minute. But hopefully that person still feels part of the team. But when you're bringing them back in, you're kind of bringing people slowly back into that working environment. So just think about that. But you do have, like I just touched on, up to 10 paid keeping in touch days. I think they're worth their weight in gold. So, for example, when individuals are coming up to a point where they're into no pay on their maternity, so it's gone past that 39-week scenario, it's really good to get an additional day's pay for keeping in touch days. I think it's great to keep in touch, to do exactly what it says on the tin and keep in touch and in the loop within the business. And it also helps with some of these things about planning for the future of what that individual's looking to do. And remembering, a lot of that is up to the decision of that individual as to what they're wanting to do when they're coming back to work. And it's also thinking about what you might need to introduce them to, if there's any updated training, if there's any updates of new things that have come onto what you're doing in the workplace, and training around those systems, or whatever the case may be. It's making sure there's a plan of action and not this person just rocks back up from maternity leave and then you find out everything they want to do and how it's going to work. It's a time bomb otherwise. So the other part with this is like I've just touched on through all of that. I've skimmed quite a lot, and I know that, and I keep repeating this because on the same, I'm kind of being contradictory, and I know that. So you're gonna have to excuse me. I know that this is an area where there are risks. There is an area where businesses and also individuals don't pay enough attention. It's the one I always bring up historically as an example of, you don't know until you know, right? Of what's happening and what you need to be aware of, because until you come into interaction with that, both as an employee and as an employer, you're not, it's not something you're reading up all the time if it's not going to be applicable to you. So I think with that in mind, knowing I've skimmed over that so much, and there is so much more detail that comes underneath all of that, I just want to make sure that you're aware of how we can help and support you and your business. So we can help you as employers to look at those red flags and turn them into a state of readiness, to make sure you're prepared, to make sure there's communication, to make sure you're aware, you've got your eyes open, and more importantly as well, that your employees are supported through those processes, as I think we'd all agree they should be. Our job is to make sure basically that your compliance is as simple as it humanly could be. Is basically human. That's the human element of HR, right? Human resources. So I don't want to just give you policies and throw stuff at you. I want to also help and support you to train your managers. I want to help and support you to coach your managers and through those processes, and also give you the tools to manage it effectively, which I think is really important, and it's brilliant in terms of creating better workplaces, environments, cultures, and retains brilliant parents. Because at the end of the day, just because individuals are choosing in their life to have to have children, have parents, what on about, which is fantastic for them. That's great news. It doesn't mean that they're less of an employee. So obviously, it's about balancing that, and that's really important. But equally, it's about making sure that where there are those gaps, that we can help to plug those. And a coffee and a chat cost nothing. So use the link, please. So with that in mind, I want to make sure that you're aware that there are these things. They do change. There are expectations on you. There are huge risks if you get those wrong and make sure you're aware about that. Make sure that you are compliant. You want to create a more parent-friendly workplace. That is something that is really important because, like I just touched on, parents doesn't mean you're not a good employee. And I don't think any of us would say that because it's nonsensical. So we want to make sure that we're providing great working environments and cultures for people to be a part of throughout everything, and make sure that we're doing the right things by our staff. You can book no obligation chat, like I've just said. A chat costs nothing. Chat and coffee. You don't even have to buy my coffee. God damn it. And we can talk through those bits. I know there's a lot more detail under the skin of the things that I've really skimmed through, and we'll walk you through those essentials. So there's no fluff, no crap, no pressure. And you can find the link in the description, like I said, where you can obviously get more information from us, get this more up to date and more frequently, and get more stuff as well out of that process than you would do just from obviously the podcast, either on YouTube or through wherever you get your podcasts. And obviously, if you are watching this on the article, then thank you. Fantastic news. You can still have a coffee and a chat if you need to. So please just click that link at the bottom and please read the article because that will give a lot more information on some of the bones that I've actually just kind of breezed through in this video. But thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.